The Wrangler has always been a solid sales driver for Jeep, and it's really no surprise. It's a darn good looking SUV and it's a capable off roader at that, and we Filipinos love that, don't we?
Well, now the 2024 Wrangler Rubicon has arrived in the market, and where else to try it out but here on Sacobi River in Clark, Pampanga. So you're probably thinking, what exactly is new with this Wrangler because it kind of looks the same. Well, it has a new grille. It has now 7 slats here up front with slight gaps in between each one. And that's not just for looks, mind you. They let more air into the engine bay to help with cooling. Here on the sides, as you can see, it still has the same fender flares as before, but it now sits on new look 17-inch alloy wheels shod in chunky BF Goodrich all-terrain tires. Now over here on this part, it has a very special bit here. It has a trail-rated 4x4 badge that Jeep has now bestowed on the Wrangler Rubicon. It doesn't have step boards, unfortunately, but it still does have the removable doors. Here at the back, you still get your signature Wrangler taillights. You have your spare tire that, as standard, does not come with a cover. And of course, your split tailgate. Behind the wheel, it's just about what I expected. There's not an awful lot of space to work with here. It's pretty cramped down here. My feet don't have a lot of room to work around with, and elbow room is not that great. Headroom, though, I guess you have a lot more space here because there isn't a roof liner available because this is, by the way, removable. Despite lacking space, though, you do have a lot of buttons to play around with. Now, starting with the steering wheel, you have your controls for the infotainment system, you have your cruise control controls, and you have separate buttons for your adaptive cruise control, something I don't really understand. Now, anyway, down here, you have your controls for the AC, you have all these buttons here, you have your window controls over here because the doors are removable again, so you'd have to put your control modules over here. Now here you have your gear shift lever, which is pretty cool. It looks retro. It's not your typical modern gear shift lever. It does have a cool Easter egg. You have a Willis Jeep logo here. And something pretty cool, it has a mechanical handbrake. I'm sure a lot of off-roaders will also like that one. Then you have your center armrest with a small cubby underneath and a larger one here below with a USB-A charging. Before we head to the second row, let's swim back over here up front where you'll find this large 12.3-inch infotainment system with wireless Apple CarPlay and wired Android Auto. You have a very clear and crisp display. Now, this is paired with a Alpine sound system that actually sounds really good. It even has a dedicated subwoofer at the back. What I appreciate about this display is that it doesn't have all the controls stuffed into it, unlike with other brands and other cars. It only has controls for your media, for your comfort, such as the seat heating and the steering wheel heater. It also has controls for the front and rear camera and your mirror dimmer, and I guess that's about what you'd use it for. Now, over on this side, you have analog gauges for your rev meter and your speedometer, and you have a small digital display in the middle. And I like this one also because it's pretty clear and you have a lot to work around with here. You have options for fuel economy, for your trip meter. You can check your audio. You can basically turn it off. Anyway, it's time to check out the rear seats. I guess the worst part about the rear seats is that it's so hard to get into them and fit yourself here. I'm not the most fit person in the world, I know, but even if you were a thin guy or someone a bit more physically active, you'd still have a hard time getting in and out of here. You have space for 2.5 passengers, I suppose, because you don't have a lot of space here in the middle for a fifth passenger. Now, in terms of amenities, at the very least, you do get dedicated AC vents. You have 4 ports. You have two USB-C charging ports and two USB-A charging ports, and a socket for a 115 volt. Anyway, let's get to driving.
I'll be brutally honest, the Jeep Wrangler just isn't the best handling SUV out there when you're on paved roads. It's difficult to hit corners, and even when you're on open stretches, it tends to not follow a straight line. In the city, while it does feel light to drive, visibility is also a huge issue from behind the wheel. Seriously, kudos to those who daily their Wranglers because this really isn't the best thing to drive out on the road.
But when you're driving off-road like what we are doing right now, the Wrangler is all sorts of fun. Of course, you wouldn't really mind much about comfort when you're driving off the beaten path, so yeah, forget about what I said. But anyway, the Wrangler does come with a lot of off-road features. Unfortunately, Jeep asked us not to take this through hard off-roading, so we're just driving it here through some light trails on Sacobia and just playing around with it on Lahar and through this riverbed. I'm a pretty inexperienced off-roader. I don't really know much about driving off-road, but the Wrangler is very friendly, so it isn't really that hard for me. Here on the Lahar bed, I just switch to 4 high and I just gas and go. Now the Wrangler has traction control available, but unlike other traction control systems and other brands and other models, it's a bit less intrusive. So as you may probably see on the video, I am swaying a bit, and that's with traction control on, mind you. Depending on your skill level, that can be all sorts of fun or that can be dangerous. So it depends. But at least for me, I can do stuff like this. Some safe donuts on an open Lahar bed. So yeah, that's pretty fun. The Wrangler also comes with front and rear locking differentials, but again, we're not going to be able to try that out. What we can do is disconnect the sway bar. This is one feature that the Wrangler has that I particularly like. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna stop over here. We're just gonna try and disconnect it. We'll just wait for it. It takes a while though. It really takes a while. Yeah, there you go. So I just gassed up a bit and it now says sway bar disconnected. I don't know if you noticed, but there's less vibrations now. It's less harsh inside the cabin and it's less bumpy. Again, like I said, not that it really matters that much when you're driving off-road because that's a given, it's gonna be a rocky ride, but hey, that's a pretty cool feature in the Jeep Wrangler Rubicon. Now it also has Off-Road Plus mode that when you switch it, it turns off traction control and basically makes you ready for some high-speed off-road driving. The 2024 Jeep Wrangler Rubicon still is one of the off-roaders to beat in the market. It's got undeniable road presence, it's got excellent styling, it's got power, it's got everything you want in an SUV. And as an off-roader, well, you can drive it straight out of the factory, out of the dealership, onto a riverbed like this one, and even without that much experience, you'll be perfectly fine. The only problem I have with it, well, it's gotten pretty expensive. The Wrangler now stickers for 5,780,000 pesos. That's a lot of money, and if you look at it, it's about a million pesos more expensive than, yes, the Ford Bronco. And now that begs the question, is this worth it over the Bronco? I guess we'll have to big test it to find out, and who knows, we might just do that.
But for now, we're stuck with this. And what I can say is that if you're too in love with the design, because this does look very, very good, that you're willing to overlook its flaws, then go ahead. Just make sure you're not going to downgrade it into a mere mall crawler, because it wasn't built to be daily driven around the city. It's meant to go off-roading, and on the rough terrain is where it truly excels.